Hello and welcome to the Idiot Book Nook. My name is Blazewing. My pronouns are they, them.
I am the reading dragon, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm Lady Punnet. My pronouns are primarily she, her, sometimes they, them. Today is a she, they kind of day.
And today we are rocking off with, I think it's episode 5 of Tongues, Tangents, and Titillations. One of our
Right.
more discussion based episodes. Unfortunately, Critter is unable to join us this morning. But before we get into that, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll be able to find links to our podcast, to our YouTube, to the Twitch, to all of our individual socials, and you'll be able to come see what we're doing on the net. With that being said, I believe we had a topic picked for today, did we not?
Vampires.
One of my favorite topics.
In media.
One of my favorite topics. So, what specifically about vampires are we talking about today?
That's the question, isn't it? I think what we decided was the main topic was similarities in all medias. So like what most of the medias have in common, who does what differently, etc., etc.
Lady Punnet and I have been on a huge vampire kick as of late. We actually watched all 3 Lost Boys movies. We marathoned What We Do in the Shadows in roughly 2.5 to 3 days. All 5 seasons of it, no less. And now we're starting on Interview with the Vampire. So that's a thing.
We're slowly dragging Dragon into What We Do in the Shadows, and she agrees that it is just as stupid but strangely addictive.
Okay, so
Please.
there's 2 of us here that have seen all 5 seasons. It is relatively fresh in our mind.
Previously, I'd only had experience seeing the movie. I fucking love the movie.
Yeah, you're gonna love the TV show too.
And yeah, I've been wanting to watch the TV show for the longest time as well. And these two lovely individuals did watch for 5 episodes of season 1. Is like, yes.
6 episodes of season 1.
Still, the sentiment still applies.
One thing they do differently with What We Do in the Shadows is so first of all, as we know, in most media there was this whole thing of like, oh, humans can't know we exist or they're gonna hunt us down. Hide in plain sight, yada yada yada. They have a human familiar, and human familiars apparently are very common.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mark this episode for spoilers.
Yep. Spoilers if you haven't seen like all of What We Do in the Shadows. I'm going to try and stick it with just season 1 just to make things easier because I think season 1 came out in like 2017 or something.
I can't remember. I know season 4, was it season 3 or season 4 came out in 2019, and then season 5 literally just ended airing last week.
So, but yeah. So in the What We Do in the Shadows universe, I imagine I can drop like hints of lore because some of it makes sense.
I don't have an issue with that.
So first of all, a big thing in lore with lores of vampires is they need to sleep on their ancestral soil, otherwise they can't sleep.
That's more old school lore. More modern vampires
very old
don't
school.
have to, but it is an interesting trope I see kind of being brought back, which is absolutely fascinating.
I enjoy that, and a whole thing in one of the episodes later on is while traveling they lose their ancestral soil, so they have to go get some more. Otherwise, they can't sleep, which is another interesting thing because in most media with vampires, except for like some more recent renditions, as soon as the sun comes up, they fall asleep. But with these guys, they don't. It's similar to like you don't need to sleep, but if you don't sleep, you're gonna get very, very cranky.
It's basically just the reverse of how humans are.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that is interesting is in What We Do Into the Shadows, they also expand on different types of vampires. In this case, there is Colin Robinson, who is an energy vampire, who we actually experience in everyday life. They're the people who just talking to them makes you lose your will to live.
You know those people that sit there and talk about things that you have absolutely no interest in? The people that just seem to kind of suck your soul out of your body as they go on and on about things that you don't care about. Yeah, that's the energy vampire.
And the worst part is with the energy vampires, he does it in a smart way where his like feeding grounds, they can't escape him easily.
He does it at work.
He does it at work. You can't escape someone while they're at work. Or he feeds at like places where there's a lot of people and does it like subtly. We're also introduced to emotional vampires who now in season 1 we've only ever met one, Evie, who feeds on like pity and sadness. It makes me wonder if we would ever see other emotional vampires that feed on things like happiness or stress, which kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys ever read or watched the anime Chibi Vampire.
Nope.
Okay, so in that lore, now it's more of a mature thing. It had a lot of fan service. Basically, in that one, this girl who was a vampire but a daywalker due to things and reasons is able to walk during the day, and she gets nosebleeds whenever she's around her blood type, because in that universe, vampires have a certain
I remember now. Yeah, I remember now.
So for her brother, he enjoys feeding on people who are stressed. Her mother likes liars. Her father likes prideful people, if I recall correctly. She feeds on people who are unfortunate or their misfortune. And by drinking that blood, she is able to take away some of that, except for the main male lead character, who is just always unfortunate, so she keeps getting nosebleeds around him.
I'm getting there was this anime a while back, literally about a reverse vampire. Basically, her body produces too much blood, so in order to deal with that, she has to donate it to the humans. But to do that, she has to bite them, and she injects the blood into them that way.
I think that might be the same thing, yeah. Possibly. It's a common trope, because people like the idea of being bitten. But yeah, we're a very kinky generation. But back to the topic at hand. Some other things that are common that What We Do in the Shadows has is, they can't go out into the sunlight or they will burn to a crisp. They can't handle garlic. In season 1, we don't see how they do with like running water, but they did say they traveled over on a boat from the old land. So we can determine that maybe so long as they have their coffins, they're fine.
Where is this Staten Island? It's where the boat dropped us off.
Another thing, okay, so in different medias with vampires, there's always this thing of like, you don't in some medias, you can drink from someone and not kill them.
Yep.
In some medias.
Yep.
Not all, but some. Lately, I've been seeing I've only seen one episode of Interview with a Vampire, but it doesn't look like that's the case for that one. With these, actually, no, What We Do in the Shadows, it was revealed literally in the first episode that apparently there was a bunch of half-drunk people
Yeah.
there.
A bunch of half drunk. Was it? Please make sure you clean. You clean up after a party. There's a bunch of half drunk people walking around screaming. Where'd they find the alcohol? No, they were half drunk. They were literally half drunk. Please make sure you finish off an entire victim before moving on to the next one.
Or, just put like your name and date on it so that way we know when you last partook on them.
Yeah, that's when I thought Nadja held the brain cell of that group. I was wrong.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you?
No, Nadja does not hold the brain cell of the group. It's either the people who hold the brain cell are either Colin Robinson or Guillermo. Those two share the two brain cells of that group.
One brain cell's lost and the other's out looking for it.
Yep. Well, something interesting that what we do in the shadows does is similar with other medias. They do a bit more of a comedic twist on it, is how there's a lack of humanity with the vampires. Like, we agree, oh yeah, they're dicks. They're mean to their familiars. They don't view humans in the same light. But then in later seasons, we see, oh no, there are some people who treat their familiars far worse.
Yeah, like, we originally went in thinking Guillermo was treated like absolute trash. Season 5, it's revealed they actually treat him pretty humanely, all things considered. He could be doing a hell of a lot worse. And when I say worse, I mean, like, think torture prison conditions.
Yeah. And they don't, and they even say, like, during one of the episodes, we're vampires. We don't show people we care that we care the same way normal people do. They have a very, I don't want to say black and white thing of viewing things, but more of like, is this practical for us? Type of way.
Ferret says, they're reckless, arrogant, stupid dicks. Yes, they are. They absolutely are. But that doesn't mean that they don't care. They just show it differently.
They show they care from how they would show they care to people from when the time periods they were from. So, for example, I think the youngest, aside from Colin Robinson, which we find out later, there's a whole thing with him, with how old he actually is. With, I think the youngest vampire among them is Laszlo.
Yeah.
Because I think in order of oldest, I think it goes Nandor, Nadja, then Laszlo. Laszlo's the youngest, and I think Laszlo was embraced in like
1700s.
Yeah, let me look that up.
It was either 17 or 1800s. But they'd have different ways of showing that they care based on what time periods they were from. Cultural and social norms don't remain the same throughout the centuries, and that is fluid as time moves, as we kind of learn more, and as we learn to behave differently in what would be considered more civilized areas of the world. In more... That's not exactly what I'm... Not exactly the allegory I'm going for, more...
Modern?
More modern areas of the world. Thank you. Anyways, finish your thought.
Well, so yeah, it turns out Laszlo was like turned in either the 17th or 18th century. So he's the youngest, and even though he's the youngest, he's only the youngest by like 200 to 300 years. And we see how he is with people. He has this old-time gentleman type persona, which most people think, oh yeah, he's a gentleman, he's good. No, he's a gentleman based in like the 17th to 18th century. And we see he has quite the libido, which makes me still question if him and Nadja are in like an open marriage where they're okay with it, or if it's like a I don't well no, it's not even I don't tell her, she don't tell me type situation. They're aware of it because apparently it's a common thing.
That episode where they thought they broke Laszlo's mind. Yeah, something's wrong with him. We're down to fucking only 16 times a week.
Yeah, that's
an
down.
actual quote. That's down.
We never find out how many times they actually have intercourse. Yeah. Which is actually a thing in some medias. In some medias, it's like, well, no, vampires typically can't have sex because of lack of blood to extremities. The only common thing is vampires can't reproduce.
So
that is also dependent on what lore you're going with.
Yeah, but most commonly, the lore is the vampire cannot reproduce sexually. They have to reproduce by siring offspring. I had a whole point I wanted to talk about, and now it's gone.
Is it about sex with vampires?
Vampires are, in modern society and modern folklore, hyper-sexualized creatures. There is a sort of air of mystery surrounding them. They've been used through time to, represent different ideals. The idea of the new woman, the idea of, others, the idea of foreign peoples invading what is seen as the norm. The idea of things that are considered generally taboo. In modern mythology, they are hypersexualized to a point that is absolutely unreal, and because of that, the way that they are, the creatures that they are, and the sexuality that they are portrayed as exuding has become so intertwined that it becomes extremely hard to be able to separate one from the other, I think.
True.
Which I think is what that was a play on, is that, vampires are hypersexualized, therefore, naturally, Nadja and Laszlo should be doing this multiple times a day, effectively.
Mm-hmm. Well, even Nandor, who doesn't have, like, a partner, does get action as well, and he has revealed that before he was turned, he had 37 wives. This was old times. Old times. And also, not all of his wives were women.
Yeah, so Laszlo has a type. It's interesting because neither Nandor nor Laszlo discriminate based on perceived gender. They don't care whether it's a man or a woman or what body parts they have. They have types. For Laszlo, for instance, it's long dark hair.
Yep.
As long as you have long dark hair, you're good.
Yep.
For Laszlo, one of the things that they dealt with was Nandor found a genie. Complete with magic lamp and everything, right? He had a crap ton of wishes, and he wasted these wishes on on a lot of the most stupid things. For instance, increasing the size of his wang. There were a bunch of other things that we saw in post-episode clips, but one of the things that he did was he went and got married. He had, all of his wives brought back, right? All of his dead wives brought back. And then he started trying to narrow it down to find out who his soulmate was, because he was pretty sure his soulmate was one of the women he'd already married. When it was found out that this person wasn't his soulmate, he would go off them. Make them disappear again. So he finally finds one that he thinks is his soulmate. And then later on, a few episodes later, it was Guillermo's friend, was it not? Or Guillermo's partner. He had the genie turn his wife into an exact replica of Guillermo's partner, including looks, mannerisms, habits, like exact duplicate copy.
Let's not reveal too much, otherwise we'll spoil everything for Dragon. But yeah, Nandor doesn't have a type. He shows interest in people for different qualities. For example, from my experience, he likes people that are a bit more subservient.
Subservient?
Yeah. He likes people who are a bit more on the meek side, who are more agreeable. Typically, he doesn't like anyone that's too competitive.
Fair. Which explains Guillermo and his willingness to let everybody walk all over him.
Because he even said, like, when we eventually get introduced to one of his previous familiars, that one of the reasons he was let go is he was too pushy. So it's just little things like that. Nadja, on the other hand, likes warriors. She likes her warriors. But
It's kind of interesting considering that she's still married to Laszlo.
Laszlo, in his own right, can be seen as a warrior, though. He can be seen as quite chivalrous for his time, and he can be seen as willing to stand up for what he believes is right. He is stuck in the time in which he's stuck in the time in which he was turned. He's no stranger to violence or to fighting for what he considers a just cause.
This is true. Which is interesting, because typically, well, it's not uncommon for vampires, because we need to try and get back on topic with the vampire topic. Yeah. It's not uncommon for vampires to stay stuck in the time period they were from. It's very rare to see vampires get, like, what's the word I'm looking for? To evolve, basically. That is a very rare thing to find with vampires, to, like, evolve with the times. The only times I see that truly happen are, like, with more modern media, especially, like, the romance genre of vampire media. Like, let me think of some examples. I am terrible with modern vampire media, apparently, because the first thing I thought of was Twilight, which ugh. But yeah, so because typically, like, with the romance novels, the vampires typically are either stuck in their time period, or if it's the more modern stuff, they, like, evolve with the times, because that's also an evolutionary thing, where, if we don't evolve with the times, we're going to die. They're gonna find us out. We're gonna get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one wants to get killed a second time, especially.
No, getting killed is not fun at all. But yeah, with what we do in the shadows, and from what I've seen of Interview with a Vampire, they do stick true to a lot of the lore that it's based in, like with the whole, like I said earlier, with like sunlight. I haven't seen what they're like with interviewing a vampire. I haven't seen what they're like with like garlic and stuff.
Interview with Vampire is really good.
Yeah, I've only seen like the first episode, and I can't tell if I like it or not. I think it's because I'm going from two drastically different medias of what we do in the shadows and even like the Lost Boys. Which, yes, one's horror, but there was still like that kind of cheesiness to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going from the very, very cheesy, corny comedic thing of Lost Boys and What We Do in the Shadows to a bit more serious tone of Interview with a Vampire. Which isn't a bad thing, but it's also a vastly different thing.
What else we got?
There's common tropes in all, because typically there's always the common tropes in almost all vampire media.
Also,
for example, there's always politics. Well, not always. If we look at like the original Dracula, not really much has to do with politics there. Unless you look at like the marriages.
Actually, Dracula was a commentary on society at the time from Bram Stoker. He used the image of the vampire to commentate on what he saw as some of societal downfalls, some of societal shortcomings.
I did not know that.
Yep. Vampires have been used to make commentary on society throughout like countless decades and centuries. Basically as long as they've been around. They've embodied our fears, our insecurities. They prey on our weaknesses. There's a reason that they represent things that go bump in the night. A lot like werewolves or zombies, creatures like Frankenstein's monster. They've all been used to symbolize things that we're scared of.
Also, God, what's he called? He's the thing in the lake, fish dude.
The thing from the Black Lagoon?
Yes, the thing from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. Thank you.
Yeah, that's another one.
Which, technically speaking, the Creature from the Black Lagoon story being rewritten as that film, The Shape. Is it called The Shape of Water or something like that?
Yes.
What? Yeah.
Yes.
With the deaf girl. Mm-hmm. That whole love story. It's actually pretty interesting. I liked it. I liked the film.
I had a point, but I forgot.
Yeah, that happens. But I want to take just a moment and look at all of the different stories that have come out of, even just vampires themselves. Give me 1 second here. So I have a bunch of books on my shelf. I'm going to pull them out. We've got Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire. Jennifer Armentrout, The Turning. We've got Anne Rice, Queen of the Damned. We've got Yasmin Galenhorn, Dragon Witch. There's Dead Speak. There's Bitten, Dawn of the Vampire. There's what else we got here? The Vampire Journals, The Vampire Papers, Dead Until Dark, which is one of the Sookie Stackhouse series books. There's Curse of the Vampire, Hellsing, Vampire Slayer, Blood and Chrysanthemums. Guillermo del Toro. Deeply Draconic, hello. And so many more books that I've got sitting on my shelf, including one of my favorites, Immortal Rules, by Julie Kagawa. For each one of those books, they have
Opa?
various different lores. Yeah, I broke something. Various different lores. My brain's gone. My thought's gone. Cool.
Are you okay?
My thought is gone. You guys keep talking. I will be right back. I have to go clean up whatever just fucking smashed on the floor. You guys keep talking. I have to go clean up whatever smashed on the floor.
We're just thinking about what next to talk about.
I was eating a piece of candy.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Sour key rings. That's actually a good point to bring up. You know what would suck about being turned into a vampire besides the fact that you have to constantly feed on people or living things?
Yeah.
Is the fact that you can't eat food
Without
At
getting
least
violently ill.
at least how it's described in most medias, is you can't eat food without becoming violently ill, which would suck. Because think about it. If you are like a foodie and you like to eat food or you like to try different foods, or if you're like a chef and your passion is cooking, you can't do any of that anymore because you can't eat it unless you just enjoy the process of making the food and not eating it. In that case, you're a psychopath.
And I really do like food.
Exactly.
Yeah, Terry and Phoenix, no tacos. Like, if you become a vampire and it just so happens you're not able to eat food without getting violently ill once you get turned, no more tacos.
No tacos, no fajitas, no enchiladas, no nachos, no hamburgers, no mac and cheese, no ice cream.
Or pie.
Or pie, or cake, or ice cream cake, or
popsicles.
Or popsicles. You can't even juice, alcohol, friggin' smoothies, milkshakes.
Boba. You wouldn't have boba anymore.
I wouldn't be able to have boba anymore, and that's a crime in and of itself. Like,
or ramen.
My God. Oh, that's just cruel. I have wondered, though, in certain medias, if they, like, put blood in soup, would that work?
I think, okay, so, like, I think the only way around the whole food thing is if the food was infused with blood. And it has to be done in a way to where the food can actually be processed.
How much of a blood to food ratio do you think it would have to be? I imagine it had to be a high blood to food ratio. Otherwise, like, you couldn't just put in you can put in like 2 drops of blood and it'd be good. I think it'd have to be like almost like 75% blood to 25% food.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, like 70 to 75% blood to food ratio, which quite honestly would mean that most of the food that you would eat, depending on how it's prepared and how you do it, would mostly be like mush. You're effectively eating grits and blood.
Okay, so I was curious about this. I just looked it up, and there's such a thing as a Vietnamese blood soup.
There's also blood pudding in Europe.
So, theoretically, do you think vampires could eat these things?
That is a possibility.
That
We were
depends on
discussing
the
how
lore, because some lores are contingent on vampires consuming blood and only blood. Any sort of human food, whether included with the blood or not, would cause that vampire to vomit. It would basically come right back up, or it would fuck completely with their insides. In other lore, so long as the food is mixed with blood, the food can pass, which brings up interesting body mechanics. In other lores, the food doesn't necessarily have to have blood in it, so long as the vampire gets their sustenance from the blood itself.
Yeah, we were discussing how it would be terrible if like a foodie was turned into a vampire because then they'd live for eternity but not be able to eat like all the delicious food.
Personally,
And then we'd be
I'm the type of asshole that'd probably turn vegans just for the hell of it.
well, yeah, I get that. That would be funny. But I'm also just thinking myself, I couldn't have boba or ramen.
That's a crime.
That's a crime.
That
I
depends,
like
because I've had some really shitty ramen in my time.
The ability to have ramen in general being lost with vampirism is a crime.
It really is. I just want to enjoy my ramen and my boba and my marble pop, guys.
Or at
It's
least
all
enjoy the experience of complaining about shitty ramen.
Yeah. Also, if you were like say you were a day person or you really, really liked going to the beach. You can't go to the beach during the day anymore. And if you like to travel, most places, depending on where you go, are only open during daylight hours.
That depends. If you look at things like Buffy, vampires can be awake during the day, they can go out during the day, they just have to stay out of direct sunlight. It all depends on which lore you're going by when you get turned, basically.
There's also the lore surrounding a series called Being Human, if you've ever seen that. It originally started off as a UK series, and then there was a US adaptation that was featured on Sci Fi Channel. And I have yet to see the UK version, but I greatly enjoyed the US version when it came out for my area, at least. But it's a similar lore surrounding sunlight for vampires where they can theoretically go out during the day and whatnot, just again staying out of direct sunlight.
I've heard of it. It's on my to watch list.
You'd like the vampire.
So I've been told.
Oh, you love the ghost. Especially when she remembers shit.
Anyways, what else have we got?
Let's see.
Some lores mixing in lores of other supernatural creatures, because like there are forms of media where they only focus on the lore of vampires as if vampires are the only cryptic creature out there. However, most other forms of media will find a way to mix in other cryptic folklores and what have you, and other supernatural creatures along with it. But depending on what the story it is that they're creating will determine as to how much other types of monsters are involved in the vampire stories that are created.
Mm-hmm.
You mean so?
Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. When you say stories will try and find a way to fit in other other lore than just vampire. Lost Boys did that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with like the werewolves and what have you.
Well, so I just thought of something else that's kind of common is stakes or sharp objects to the chest or heart area. Now, in most cases, instant death. However, in the tabletop RPG Vampire the Masquerade, it doesn't kill you, but it puts you into torpor.
Which is, for those of you who don't know what that is, it is basically unconsciousness. It's paralysis.
Unless you're already at a low enough health where doing something like that will just coup de grace you.
In most cases in VTM, it'll just put you in torpor unless you have a Mythic Bane.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Mythic Bane out there where the moment your skin is pierced with a wooden stake, or the moment your heart is pierced with a wooden stake, you're instant dust.
Mm-hmm. Which has always been kind of interesting to me. Well, so first and foremost, the whole logic of, oh, if you drive a stake through a vampire's heart, it kills them. It would kill anybody. It's not sound logic.
It really isn't.
It's just like setting somebody on fire or beheading them.
Or tying them to something heavy and throwing them in the water.
Or just tossing them in the water. If they float, they're a witch. If they sink, they aren't, so you have to save them. And there's chances you won't even get to them in time, because to my knowledge, CPR wasn't a thing during the witch trials.
Nor was swimming.
Well, swimming...
For a lot of folks.
For a lot of folks. Fair, I'll take that. On that note, there is a lot more that we could talk about. I, unfortunately, am feeling pretty drained this morning. I don't know about you lot.
Kind of. This was also a spur-of-the-moment type thing, so we didn't have a chance to properly make, like, a syllabus or anything.
Correct. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode then.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing. When it comes to, like, vampires in real life, like the actual lifestyle of vampirism or the spiritual practice of vampirism, the topic of famous vampires throughout history besides Dracula, like in media, there are individuals such as someone we all know, or at least most of us know, Jack Townsend, who is one of the popular vampires right now. About roughly 10 to 15 years ago, at least from my perspective, there was another really popular real-life vampire going around media and whatnot. His name was Don Henry. And he was most famous for his involvement with a reality series called Mad House, where a whole bunch of random, like, everyday people got to participate in living in a giant mansion together. However, they were also living with individuals who were considered prominent figures in their respective cultures, like either supernatural cultures, basically. Don Henry was a vampire. There was a voodoo priestess. There was a what was that name? A naturalist. And there was also another individual. His major thing was body modifications.
There was a vampire, a voodoo priestess, a naturalist, a Wiccan, and a modern primitive, all vying for a $100,000 prize.
Yep.
Ah.
The IMDb link is in the chat, if you want to go take a look at that.
I actually watched that series all the way through. I found it and I watched it. I liked it. For its time, it was quite enjoyable, and there were episodes that were a little bit more informative for its time. And you actually get like a feel for what energy vampirism would actually be like, too, because they did showcase that in the series.
On that note, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. Like I said, it's kind of a low energy day today. I don't know what we're going to do after this, so just stay tuned for that. But for the Idiot Book Nook, Sorry, let me rewind a second. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at lanktr.ee/Idiot Book Nook. You'll be able to find links to our podcast, to our YouTube channel, to all of our individual socials, and all of that jazz. And come find out what we're doing on the net. We hope that you've enjoyed at least some parts of this discussion. And we hope to see you next time. But for the Idiot Book Nook, I'm Blazewing.
I am the Reading Dragon.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And we'll see you next episode.
Goodbye!
Why?